once again to our viewers and listeners, as well as the members of the panel. Beatrice, thank you very much. First of all, as a country, we are governed by rule of law, and we have enacted laws for ourselves to control and guide our conduct. And one of those laws is the Public Financial Management Act. There were a number of public financial management acts in the past, but the current one that we are using was passed in 2016. In fact, I was the chair of the Finance Committee when we passed the Public Financial Management Act of 921 of 2016. And then we also have other laws that govern us, like the procurement law, and we also have the internal audit law, internal audit agency law. Then we have the Ghana Audit Service law. All these laws are made to ensure that people who have been entrusted with public funds manage their funds in the interest of the public, so that people do not embezzle the state funds and go scot-free, that when such things happen, people are punished. So when we talk about this public financial management itself, it involves a number of things. But you mentioned about internal audits. Now, internal audit is actually, to me, the way I understand and which I am practicing now at Security and Exchange Commission, is that the internal audit is like the eye of management. Why do I say so? As the head of covered entity, or as a manager or CEO sitting in your office, when requests come from your various departments to you for approval, you need somebody to do the background check and see if right things are being done. If the financial laws are being complied with, if all the regulation, procurement, whatever system is put in place are being complied with, that person is the internal auditor. But what I have realized, or what I've noticed as the chair of the Public Accounts Committee in the past, is that most heads of entities, most CEOs, do not want to use the services of the internal auditors. So that is one of the reasons why we're having these challenges of infractions here and there. Because if the internal audit unit is working effectively, if heads of entities are using the service of the internal auditors, they will be able to ensure that things are done in compliance with the law. So if you don't use the internal auditor, you do the wrong thing. And when the external auditors, which is the audit service, which is governed by Article 187 of the Constitution, which establishes the office of the Auditor General, and asks the Auditor General to audit all public accounts of Ghana and report to Parliament. If you don't use the service of the internal auditor, you end up doing the wrong thing, and the external auditors will come and unearth those wrong things and report them in the report that they submit to Parliament. So the use of the internal audit units by the heads of entities is very critical. Where I am now as the Director General of Security and Exchange Commission, there is nothing that comes to my table which involves spending state money, which I will not refer to the internal auditor to check for me if the right thing is being done, if it is in compliance with the law, whether it's a procurement or not. So I encourage all heads of entities, ministers, chief directors, to use the service of the internal auditors. In a way, will reduce the compliance infractions that we see all the time, every year. So,
Ms. Avedzi, I want to get you clearly. You're saying that, I mean, if you look at the Internal Audit Agency Act 2003, Act 658, it spells out clearly that we must have an internal audit unit. Are you claiming by your submission that a lot of public institutions have conveniently decided not to use the unit? And that has been allowed to go on because we have chief directors, which are supposed to be, as it were, the heads of these ministries and institutions. Why have we allowed that to happen, if I got you correctly? That they are bypassing the internal audit unit?
That is what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That they will have the internal audit unit, all right, but they will not use the services of the internal auditor all the time. I'm not saying they don't use it completely. They use, but not all the time. And in certain cases, when the internal auditor even advise against certain payments, they ignore the services of the internal auditor, the advice of the internal auditor, and they'll go ahead and do it. One other thing that we have noticed is that the internal audit agency, the internal auditors in the various entities are employees of those entities. So when you go to district assemblies, the internal auditors there do not, when they advise the chief executives or the coordinating directors, because they are employed by these people, there's a fear of job security. Now, if you report and they said, I don't want you again, I'm releasing you of your duty, go home. Because of that, some internal auditors are also of the view, sometimes they see the right thing, that this is wrong, but if you report and at the end, let me use the term, you are sacked, how do you get a delivery? So there's a bit of challenge there. So again, the internal audit agency law need to be amended to make the internal audit unit just like the external audits who employ the audit service, who employ people and then ask them to go and do the audit. And if this were employed by the internal audit agency and pay them and they go and report, that fear of job security will not be there. And they can report on all things that they see. And if the